Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today is another round of the Mystery Box Challenge. If you guys are new and you're not familiar with the Mystery Box Challenge, it was created from Courtney over at Creative on the Cheap. She gets a group of us DIY YouTubers together, and each one of us is assigned another person from that group that we have to send a box full of DIY goodies to. In each box, there are 2 challenge items that have to be a little bit tricky to craft with, as well as a twist every time. We have a host this month, and it is Kelly from Kelly Barlow Creations. She got to choose the theme of the box this time, as well as all of the stipulations. For the theme, she chose everything farmhouse, which I'm super excited about because I love creating farmhouse DIYs. And then for the 10 items that we had to send, she chose to have 3 of the items as sender's choice, which means we can send anything that we wanted from any store. And then she wanted us to send something made out of wood, something galvanized metal. We had to send a farm animal, a kitchen utensil, a gardening tool. And then for one of the challenge items, she wanted us to send each other dirt. You heard that right, dirt. So I'm really excited to see what everybody comes up with using this dirt, but I'm also a little scared. And then for the second challenge item, that one was also sender's choice, so we could pick anything that we wanted. A couple of rounds ago, Courtney came up with a really fun voting feature where you guys get to vote on so many different categories for the Mystery Box Challenge. And she did create a printable cheat sheet. If you guys want to print that off and take notes while you're watching all of our videos, it makes it super easy to go and vote at the end. And I will have a link down in my description box to that cheat sheet if you wanted to print it off and use it. I really hope that you guys will do the voting because it is so much fun. Now the voting does last from June 28th until July 5th. And then on July 7th, Courtney will have her award show where she will announce all of the winners. The box I'm going to be opening today is from Melanie over at Simple Made Pretty. And then the box that I sent out this round is to Jennifer over at A Little Bit of Calm and Crazy. And I will have a link down in the description box to the playlist so that you can go ahead and watch everybody's video here in the Mystery Box Challenge. Now with all of that being said, let's go ahead and open up the box that Melanie sent. Let's open up the box, only this is the second time that I'm opening this box up. I have to admit, I have already filmed this, but when I was unboxing everything and filming, talking to you guys, I didn't realize that my audio cut out, and when I was editing, I realized I have like no audio, so everything I said while I was opening it, you just can't hear me. So I will insert some of the clips of me opening up like some of the challenge items so that you guys can get my true reaction, but I'm really sorry. I had to refilm this so that you guys could see the items with me talking. So first up in the box, she had put a card and it says Christina. She has her logo for Let's Get Crafty, Simple Made Pretty, like on the back. It is so cute. Inside the card, it says, "Hey Christina, I hope you enjoy the items in this mystery box. I tried to be nice to you, but you know, I didn't make the rules on this one. I can't wait to see what you create. Happy crafting, Melanie at Simple Made Pretty." And the card is so cute. It says, "Oh, hey there." I really like this. Super cute card. So, and then in the box, it just had some tissue paper right on top. And then also, I do want to show you, she put, I'll have to like block out her address, but isn't this so cute? It says craft time. So I just thought that was really cute when I got the box and saw that sitting on my porch. So after I pulled out the paper, right on top there were these jute placemats, which are perfect for farmhouse. I thought they were so cute, and I know I can do some DIYs with this. So this is a really good one. Next, there were some, my hair is getting in my face. Next, there were some ferns, which I've been super into ferns lately, so this is perfect. Thank you for sending these, Melanie. And I actually have some more, so I can maybe add to these ones. So far, so good. You guys know I've already seen all the items, but this one here, I love this. This is like farmhouse summer, a piece of fabric. So pretty. And then as you get into the box some more, we've got a barbecue tool hook in the shape of a star. Very farmhouse. As well as these little barn farmhouse signs from Dollar Tree. Then she sent this galvanized tin, and it has some like stars on the front, or maybe those are the starfish on the front. Really cute. These are always just really nice to have, and if I didn't want to use the starfish, I could always put something over that. We've got the farm animal, and this one is just a galvanized pig. Pig for farmhouse, perfect. And then for the gardening tools that she sent, we have a little, I don't know, what are these things called? Cultivator. I just call it like a rake. And then the shovel. For the kids' kitchen utensil, she sent one of these slotted spoons with a wood handle, which is nice. And then for the challenge items, so you guys know that one of the challenge items had to be dirt. So she sent me a bag of dirt, which I still have no idea what I'm gonna do with dirt. And I've known for a while that we had to do one challenge item of dirt, and I've just been thinking about it, and I'm still clueless. And then the second challenge item, she sent a kid's like pan and burger and fry set. So I think I can do something farmhouse with this, with the pan, but I'm clueless. Like, what would you make out of the fries? Like, what would you do with that? That was everything that Melanie sent me. I think I can come up with some really cute DIYs. I'm sorry that I couldn't show you guys the original unboxing, but that's life and things happen. Also, my neighbor just started mowing his lawn, so you might hear that in this video too. Anyways, let's go ahead and get crafting. For DIY number 1, I'm going to be using the galvanized pig that was in my box. I'm also going to be adding one of these smaller wood rounds, a small candlestick, also a wood finial topper, and then an old table leg that I had in my craft stash. So the first thing I'm going to do is just paint the bottom wood round with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. I also painted the small candlestick, the finial topper with that same paint, and then even though my table leg was already a white color, I did want to paint over it because I am going to be distressing it in a different style. As you can see, my finial topper has a hole already in the bottom, and then my table leg still had the screw. So here I was able to just screw that right into the finial. But before I did that, I added a little bit of hot glue just to make sure that everything stays nice and secure. And then I just finished screwing them together. Then I used some hot glue on the bottom of my table leg, and I attached it to the small candlestick holder. I then added some hot glue on the bottom of the candlestick holder so that I can attach it to the top of my wood round. Once I had that done, I wanted to add some distressing to this entire piece. So here I'm just using some of my black Waverly chalk paint in the color Ink, and I'm going around all of the edges. And then once I started doing that, I thought, well, maybe I could just use a black paint marker. So then I just switched over to the paint marker and started just drawing around all of the little grooves that you can see. In this project, I'm also going to be using parts of this metal star that was in the box. I'm going to be using some pliers to just bend one of those little hooks back and forth so that it pops off. I'm then going to be attaching the hook to the top of my stand that I created, and I'm going to be using some E6000 and then also some hot glue, and then just attaching it to the front of my stand. Next, I'm going to be using the galvanized pig that came in the box, and I'm going to be taking a sponge brush and my Waverly paint in the color Ink, and I'm just going to be dabbing that paint over top of the entire pig. I did do 2 coats of this, and I think that by dabbing the paint on, it works so much better than if you were to try to just use a regular paintbrush. I'm then going to be cutting a strip of this jute or burlap placemat that was in the box, and I'm gonna be creating a really cute little bow to go on my pig. I just did 2 little loops with the burlap, and I took a piece of jute twine and just wrapped it around to like create the center of my bow. And here is where I am incorporating burlap and jute. And I think I forgot to mention in the beginning of the video that for the twist, we have to include jute and burlap into every single DIY. So then once I have my bow created, I'm just hot gluing it to the neck of my pig, and then I did add a unfinished wood button right in the center. I'm then placing some jute twine back into the hanger of the pig and tying a knot to secure it. To add some detail to my pig, I'm using these unfinished wood letters from Hobby Lobby to spell out BBQ, and I'm just hot gluing them to the center of my pig. Now we're going back to that metal star. I actually was gonna incorporate this with another project that you see here, but I'll show you that one later on in the video. But then I ended up putting it onto the project I'm working on now. So here you can see I just used my pliers to take off those little circles at the top, and then also that other hanger that was on the bottom of it. And then I ended up just adding some jute all around my star, and I just wrapped it and around in just many different directions, and I would use a little bit of hot glue here and there just to keep the jute secure. And then once I was all done getting the jute wrapped around it, I ended up just hot gluing it to the very top of my hook that I have here on my stand. Here's my piece all finished. I actually really love how this one turned out, and I was able to incorporate 3 of the items that Melanie sent in my box. Now moving into DIY number 2, I'm going to be starting with this metal bucket that Melanie sent in the box, and I'm first just going to remove the 2 ropes that were at the very top, and then I'm going to be using some of the burlap placemat that she sent. I'm just cutting it down to the size that I need to go around the center of my bucket. I'm then going to start attaching that piece of burlap around the center of my bucket using some hot glue. And then I thought it would be really cute to add some of this white rope. So here you can see I have a little bit of leftover space at the top and bottom of the bucket, and I just thought the rope was a perfect fit. So I'm just hot gluing the rope around the entire top, and I ended up doing 3 different rows of the rope like you can see here, and then I ended up doing 3 rows of the white rope at the very bottom of the bucket as well. I thought it would be really pretty if I added some of this cream color ribbon that I had in my stash. I'm just wrapping it around the bucket and then cutting it down to size. And then I'm going to be using one of these little stamps that I picked up from Dollar Tree. It says, "Have a nice day," and I'm just putting some ink on the stamp and then stamping it right into the center of my ribbon. And I just think it is so cute. I mean, you could do pretty much any kind of saying that you wanted, but I just thought this one was really cute. So once I have that stamped on, I'm then just going to be taking the ribbon and hot gluing it around the center of my bucket right over top of the burlap. I wanted to add even more detail to this piece, so I'm taking these 3 unfinished wood pieces from Hobby Lobby, and I'm using some of my wood tint in the color walnut to stain all 3 pieces. I'm then using some E6000 and hot glue to attach them on the very bottom of my bucket. For the inside of the bucket, I'm cutting down a piece of floral foam, and then I'm just placing that down inside of the bucket. I'm then going to be using some of the ferns that Melanie sent. I'm cutting them down individually so that they'll be a little bit easier to work with, and then I'm just sticking them down into the floral foam. Here's the piece all finished. I think this one turned out really cute as well, and I was able to incorporate 3 of the items that Melanie sent in my box. Next up is DIY number 3. For this one, I'm going to be starting with this smaller wreath form from Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to be using that star fabric that was in my box, and I'm just going to be cutting it into several strips that are about an inch or two in width. And I just kept doing that over and over until I had several of them. And then I did the same thing with this blue and white checked fabric, and this is from Dollar Tree. So once I had all of my pieces of fabric cut, I'm then going to be cutting them in half so that I have more pieces to work with and so that they're not as long. Once I have them all cut in half, I'm then starting to tie the pieces of fabric around the very outside of my wreath form, and I just double knotted each one. I did 4 different pieces of the red star fabric, and then once I had those on, I did 6 strips of the blue and white checked fabric. I just kept doing that over and over in those same patterns until I had the entire outside wire of that wreath form all covered with the fabric. Then I'm going to be using this wood plaque from Dollar Tree. I first just cut off the jute hanger that was on the piece, and then I'm going to be using some wood filler to fill those holes at the very top. After the wood filler is all dry, I'm then using a piece of sandpaper to sand down any of the roughness. And then I'm going to be using some darker blue paint, and I'm going to be painting that first slat that you can see. And then I'm going to skip one and then do another slat with that same blue color. Once I have those ones painted, I'm then going to be painting the remainder of the 2 slats with a red color, and I believe the color here is called Cardinal Red. I'm then going to be using this God Bless America stencil from Amazon, and I'm using some painter's tape around all 4 edges to hold the stencil down and keep it in place while I'm painting. The color that I'm using on the entire stencil is Waverly's chalk paint in the color Ivory, and I'm just using a stencil brush to apply the paint. Once it was all dry, I then removed all of the painter's tape and the stencil. I'm now going to be putting the wood plaque together with my rag wreath. Here I just placed the wood plaque on top, flipped it over, and here I'm adding a ton of hot glue in all of the places that the wire touches the plaque to keep everything nice and secure. I'm then going to be adding some jute twine around the outside edge of my wood plaque. Here I'm just taking 2 pieces of jute, and then I'm starting to hot glue them at the very top, and then just working my way all the way around the entire outside edge. I'm using one of these wood stars from my craft stash, and I'm painting it with the ivory colored paint, which I ended up not even really needing to do. I then decided to add a piece of this burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree to the top of my star, and to attach it I used some of this tacky glue. And this is where I'm incorporating some burlap into my project for the twist. So once I have that ribbon attached to my star, I'm then going to be just flipping it over and then cutting the excess ribbon from around my star using my utility knife. Then I ended up just adding the star to the very front of my sign over one of the larger ones that I had stenciled on, but I was out of frame and you couldn't see me do that. I'm then going to be adding a jute hanger to the top of my wreath, and that is it for this project. This is the wreath all finished. I love how this one turned out. It's perfect for the 4th of July, and I incorporated just one of the items from my box. Now moving into DIY number 4. For this one, I'm actually going to be starting with a pillow cover from Hobby Lobby. It's just a plain linen one, and then I'm going to be using one of these jute burlap placemats that was in my box from Melanie. And you can see here, I'm just cutting the edges off of both the right and left side of the placemat. I then just made sure that the placemat was centered onto my pillow cover, and then it was time to start attaching that placemat to the cover using some hot glue. I worked in small sections so that I could make sure that all of my lines were super straight when I was attaching that placemat. After everything was attached, I then wanted to add another fabric, and this one is from Hobby Lobby, and it's a bee fabric that I've had
forever, and I just thought it would be really cute for this project. So here I'm just taking the fabric and I'm just cutting it down to where it will fit inside of that burlap placemat with a little bit of the edges coming out, like you can see here. So once I have it all cut down to size, I'm then going to be using hot glue once again to attach the bee fabric over top of that burlap placemat. And because I love to add detail, I'm using some of this rope from Dollar Tree and I'm hot gluing it around the entire outside edge of that bee fabric. I wanted to add some words to my pillow, so I'm using this Sweet as Honey stencil, and I'm going to be using the words individually. So here I'm cutting each word out of the stencil, and I'm going to be stenciling them onto this cream color ribbon. I got the sweet word centered onto my ribbon, cut it down to the size that I want, and then I'm just securing that so that it doesn't move around while I'm stenciling. And then I also made sure to use some painter's tape on the actual ribbon so that I don't get my paint on my ribbon. The color that I'm using is Waverly's chalk paint in the color ink, and I'm just using a stencil brush to apply the paint. Once it was dry, I then removed all of my tape and the stencil, and I did the exact same thing for the next two words, the as and honey, only for the strip of ribbon underneath the word as, I did smaller than the strip of ribbon that was for the words sweet and honey. And the ribbon for sweet and honey were the exact same size. Once I was done painting them all, I got them centered where I wanted them to be on the front of my pillow cover, and then I used hot glue to attach all of the pieces of ribbon. I ended up adding some of these fabric flowers from my stash at all four corners of where that rope meets. I did the two burlap ones on the bottom and then the two cream color flowers at the top. I just attached them with hot glue, and then as you can see here, I'm just cutting off the buttons on the top flowers because I'm just going to be adding a really simple jute bow in the center of those two flowers, and then over top of the bow I'm going to be attaching the button back over top. I love the look of this pillow cover. It was super simple to make, and I was able to incorporate just one of the items that was in the box, which was the burlap placemat, and then I ended up just putting my pillow insert into the cover. Moving right along into DIY number 5. For this one, I'm going to be starting with this larger piece of wood from Hobby Lobby, and I'm staining it with my walnut colored wood tint. I'm then going to be incorporating the barns that Melanie sent me. They came 3 in a pack, and I actually went and bought another pack so that I could use 5 of the barns for my project. So I first started painting them with my ivory colored paint, and then I thought I could just use a paint marker to draw the front of the barn and then all around the roof, but that ended up looking not so good, kind of like a kindergartner drew on the barn. So I just scrapped that idea and started over. I ended up painting all 5 of the barns black, and then I decided to use some smaller pieces of wood that I had in my stash as the detail pieces. So I had 5 of these rectangle shapes, and I'm going to be using that same walnut wood tint to stain all 5 of them. And then I also had some smaller pieces in my stash that were the exact same shape, but they were a little bit smaller. So I went ahead and stained 5 of those the same color as the other ones. After the stain was all dry, I then used a very small paintbrush and used that ivory colored paint, and I went around all of the outside edges of all 10 of my wood pieces, and then I drew an X inside of all of them for the barn doors and windows. And then on all of my barns that are painted black, I used that same ivory color to just go along the roof line. And then I'm just taking my pieces of wood that are my barn door and window, and I'm just hot gluing those on all 5 of my barns. I then lined up all 5 of my barns on my larger wood piece And then I used 4 of these metal stars. These ones are from Dollar Tree signs that I peeled off and then just kept in my stash, and they came very handy for this project. I then just hot glued all of my barns down along with all of the stars. And then here is where I'm going to incorporate some burlap into my project. This is just some burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree. I'm cutting it pretty thin, and then I did 2 of them like this because I'm going to be adding a strip of it at the very top of my barns and then along the bottom of the barns. I just hot glued those burlap strips to attach them, and then once I have those added, I thought it would be really cute to add some jute twine over top of the burlap. And I did 2 strands of jute over the burlap on the top and then also of the bottom. This is the piece all finished. I'm so glad I went with another idea instead of doing the white barns from the original idea. Let me know what you guys think. Would you have went with the white barns or the black ones like I did? Next up is DIY number 6. So for this one, Melanie actually sent me this unfinished wood wall shelf from Dollar Tree. It was in the mystery box, but like off to the side and wrapped in that tissue paper. So I didn't even see it until I was gonna throw the box out. So I'm glad I saw it. She did send me this item, and I'm assuming this is the wood item. So I'm just taking some wood filler and filling all of the holes that are on the shelf. Then once the wood filler is all dry, I'm then using some sandpaper just to smooth out the surface. I'm also going to be using the spoon that Melanie sent, and I went and bought another one because I wanted to use 2 of them. So I'm just going to be removing the rubber bottom of the spoon on both of them and then just cutting off the tags. I'm going to be using 4 of these unfinished wooden crates from Dollar Tree that I had in my craft stash. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue 2 of them together, and then I'm going to hot glue the other 2 of them together. I'm then going to use my walnut colored wood tint, and then I'm staining those handles that were on the spoon. And then I'm also going to be staining all 4 of the wooden crates with that same color. And because I wanted everything to have that same stained look, I went ahead and used that wood tint on the shelf as well. Next, I'm going to be using this Fresh Flower Market stencil that I had in my craft stash. I'm just centering it on that wood shelf, and I'm using some painter's tape to hold it down so that it doesn't move around while I'm painting. And the paint color that I'm using is Ivory from Waverly. After the paint was dry, I then removed the painter's tape and the stencil. And then because I needed to add some burlap to this project, I used some of the burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to be cutting it into 2 thinner strips so that I can have one on each side of my sign on the sides of my words. So once I have those cut, I'm then just securing the ribbon along the back side of the sign, overlapping the front of the sign. And again, I did that on both sides. And then because the shelf came with like a little white rope that you could hang the shelf with, I thought it would be really cool to utilize it into this project. So I'm taking 2 strands of the rope, and I'm just going to be putting it over top of the center of that burlap ribbon. I did the same thing. I just cut it down to size, and then I'm securing the ends of the rope along the back side of my sign, overlapping that burlap. And again, I did that on both sides. Next, I'm taking my 2 crates and I'm using some hot glue to attach them to the remaining 2 crates. So now I have all 4 crates together. I'm then using some hot glue to attach those spoon handles to the inside of the back of the crate on the right and the left side. It was then time for me to attach the sign that I created on top of those wooden handles, and I just secured it with some hot glue. I'm then filling my crates with some Spanish moss, and originally I was going to use green moss, and then I ended up going with the Spanish moss. And then I'm using some of these really tiny white flowers, and these ones are from Hobby Lobby, and then I used the blue color ones that are just like them, and I just stuck them down into the Spanish moss, and then I ended up adding some like purpley blue flowers as well. So once all the flowers are in, I added one more detail. I went ahead and added this cream color ribbon that I've been using a lot in today's video. I just hot glued it around the front crates right in the center, and I just think that added such a cute detail. And then because I wanted to add some jute twine, I took 2 strands of jute twine and then just hot glued those so that they would go right in the center of that cream color ribbon. This is the piece all finished. I was able to incorporate 2 of the items that Melanie sent me. It was the shelf and then the spoons. Now for DIY number 7, I'm going to be using the cultivator that Melanie sent, but I actually went and got 2 more. They were buy one, get one free at Dollar General. And as you can see, I've already taken off the handle of one of them. And how I took it off is I just put it down on the cement and I just pounded really hard with my hammer and it just popped them right off. So I'm going to be using this old thankful sign from Hobby Lobby that I've had forever and I just don't use it anymore. So here I'm just going to be painting the inside of the sign right over that thankful word with my Waverly paint in the color ink. I had some of that placemat that Melanie sent left over, so here I'm cutting a strip of it down so that it will fit right in the center of my sign. So once I have it cut down, I'm then just going to be hot gluing it into the center of the sign. I then had this chunky piece of wood from Dollar Tree and I wanted it to be a little bit smaller, so here I'm just seeing where I need to cut it off, and off camera I cut it down, and then now I'm painting the entire piece with my ivory paint from Waverly. I'm using these unfinished wood letters from Hobby Lobby to spell out the word farmhouse, and then I'm using my wood tint and walnut to stain all of the letters. Then I just centered the letters onto my piece of wood and then just secured them down with some hot glue. I attached the sign right in the center of that burlap placemat onto my sign, and then it was time to add my cultivators. I'm going to be attaching them as hangers on the bottom of my sign. I used E6000 and hot glue to attach them to the back side of my sign. And now you can hang pretty much anything you want. You could do keys, you could do a bag, a wreath, and this is what it looks like all finished. I did end up adding some jute twine on each side of the farmhouse word with a little star button. I don't know what happened to that clip, but I can't find it anywhere. So I did add those little details on there as well. I think it turned out super cute, and I hope you like this one. Now for DIY number 8, I'm going to be doing challenge item number 1. I'm starting with this glass vase from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using some white paint that is specifically made for glass, and I'm going to be applying it with this sponge brush. And as you can see, I'm just dabbing the paint on, because if you were to go back and forth, you really get no coverage whatsoever. So I did 2 coats of the white paint, and then I'm going in with a gray color paint, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm using a sponge brush and then just dabbing the paint right over top. So you can see some of that white color coming through the gray. And then now this is where I'm going to be using the dirt. I poured the dirt into a Tupperware container, and then I'm just adding a little bit of water, not a lot of water, just a little bit, and then I'm just kind of stirring it around with one of my stencil brushes. So once I get the consistency that I want, which was pretty thick, I started just rubbing the dirt onto my vase. And I will say that my vase was completely dry when I did this. So I did 1 coat of the dirt, and I did not dab because that was not working out. So I just went back and forth. And then once I had 1 coat on, I let that fully dry. And then I went in with a 2nd coat of my dirt mixture. And then once that was completely dry, I went in with this clear matte enamel sealer just to keep the dirt on and make sure everything's nice and sealed. Then I was going to add some burlap because I'm supposed to add some burlap or twine. So here I'm just cutting a strip down fairly thin, and then I'm wrapping it around the top of my vase so that it crisscrosses in the front. I'm then just securing that with some hot glue, and then I'm going to be adding a jute bow as well. So I took some jute, wrapped it around that burlap, made a really simple bow. And then I'm adding one of my unfinished wood buttons right over top of that. And then to finish it off, I just added some of these really pale pastel flowers from Hobby Lobby. Here's the vase all finished. Who knew that dirt would be a great material for distressing? I am probably going to use this again in future projects because I really love how it turned out. Now for DIY number 9, where I use challenge item number 2. I'm going to start out with one of these glass candlesticks from Dollar Tree. I just cut the tag off, and I'm going to be using that white paint for glass. Once again, I'm using a sponge brush, and I'm just dabbing the paint on. I did 2 different coats of this paint, and then I did the same thing. I took this gray paint. I will mention this gray paint was supposed to be made for plastic, but I just went ahead and used it anyway, and I just dabbed it on just like I did the white paint. Then this is where the challenge item comes in. I'm going to be using the pan that came in that kid set, and I just wanted to remove the handle of the pan, so I basically just started pulling and twisting until finally the handle popped off. But then I had this little piece of plastic that was left on there, and I tried just like cutting it off with a utility knife, but eventually I was able to just break it off using my fingers. I then painted the entire pan, the top and the bottom, with my ivory colored paint. Then once that was dry, I attached my pan to the very top of my candlestick using some hot glue, and then I wanted to add some detail to this piece. So I'm using some of this burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I just hot glued it around the bottom edge of that pan all the way around. And then once that was attached, I thought it would be nice to add some jute at the very bottom of the candlestick, and I attached it just using some more hot glue, and I ended up doing 2 different rows of the jute. Inside of my pan, I ended up adding some Spanish moss, and then I had a bunch of different style of succulents in my stash, and I just thought they would be really pretty added to the top of this. So I just put a bunch of different ones in there, and this is what it looks like all finished. I really like this one. I actually had so much fun creating all 9 of the DIYs in today's video. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Please go and check out my description so that you can click on the link to the playlist and watch everybody's videos in today's mystery box challenge. I would love to hear which project from today's video was your favorite. And again, thank you so much for watching.